Welcome to episode 2 of the Matlock podcast, Rome in a Day.
In this week's episode, Madeline continues her efforts to expose wrongdoing by building relationships with her new colleagues. When Olympia appears to sideline her during investigations for a murder case, her feelings and confidence are damaged. But can she rebuild trust in time to contribute? Or is this a more serious blow to her plans?
Y'all look like my husband right before he told me he was in love with his secretary. And by secretary, I mean prostitute. Butterscotch?
Good afternoon, Ian.
Good afternoon, Gerry. How are you?
I'm okay. You sound a bit under the weather.
Just a bit of a cold. I feel fine, but my voice is a little bit...
Yeah.
I could use a lozenge of some kind, no doubt. I think I've got some in the other room.
Yeah, you can't be sucking on them during that. Extremely annoying.
Suck it up for the period of the recording. I should do what that radio guy told us one time, drink hot water while we're speaking.
Okay. Or maybe a butterscotch.
Well, that's as bad as a lozenge, isn't it?
For the listener, yeah.
This is a tough show to take notes on, isn't it?
I mentioned last week, even before we started recording, I found myself with a lot more notes than normal I've
got about double this week that I had last week, because there's not a single wasted line in the whole...
Well, I think that is testament to the writing. It's a very tight show. Every line, every scene is there to drive the plot and the show forward.
There's nothing incidental.
I'm dying for a car chase or an extended fight.
Madeline gets in a fist fight for 8 minutes with somebody.
Yeah.
Can we have that, please, next week? That'd be great. Title this episode, Rome in a Day, presumably reference to...
Wasn't
built, yes.
Yeah, but quite a lot to get through. I suggest you go on with the socials.
Yes, so as previously advertised, we are available on the traditional social channels at Columbo Podcast on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram and Facebook and so on. Show notes are available at columbopodcast.com, and as is our wont, you can find every episode 1 week early on the Columbo Podcast Productions YouTube channel, where you can like, comment, subscribe and receive notifications. If you could also take the time to leave positive reviews in other places like Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, also IMDb. Those places are very helpful to us if you can spare a few moments.
Let's crack on.
We start with a recap. I thought it was interesting that they didn't really talk about the story from episode 1. It was all about the arc, all about Madeline's plot.
Of course, because the last week's story is pretty irrelevant to us going forward.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, will this be a regular previously on, or is this going to be for the first week or two?
Oh, if it is, we could just save ourselves watching the whole episodes and just watch these little bits at the start.
I certainly will be, yes. We begin in the office.
There's a meeting going on between Senior, Olympia and Julian.
And a smiling Maddie enters, I'm still going to call her Maddie, accompanied by the original Matlock theme. And she's clutching a batch of homemade muffins, which she tells the others that she baked the previous night while on a high from their previous and recent win. So this is almost in real time. It's not like Columbo where you don't know how long ago the previous...
months or whatever. Yeah, this is days later. Yeah, she's still in her first couple of weeks of work here. All three of these partners look surprised.
Yeah, they're not used to a sort of homely gesture, I don't think. It's not the type of environment.
I thought they were surprised that she'd interrupted a senior partners meeting. But it's not a senior partners meeting because Elijah's not there and he's senior to Julian.
I think it's just that, they're not used to people bringing in muffins.
It could be that, yes. Olympia is the only one who won't take a muffin, and nor will she accept a butterscotch.
And Madeline is then told to take a seat, which she nervously does, as we heard in the intro.
She's interrogated at that point about an error she made on her first day.
Yeah, she claimed that the original Matlock show, I shouldn't say the original because in this universe there only is one Matlock show, that Matlock ended in 1992, but they know it only moved to a new network and didn't finish for an additional 3 years.
Maybe it's like the Columbos. Nobody really enjoys the new ones on the different networks. They don't talk about them.
I do.
Well, we do.
But people do. Lots of people talk to us about them.
But there are people who won't.
We've talked about it in great detail. You've used a bad analogy here.
No, there are definitely people who don't enjoy the new Columbos as much.
Oh, as much? Well, that's a different matter, isn't it? Anyhow, we see that Madeline is under pressure from all three of them.
Her outfit suddenly changes.
Does it?
Yes.
There's a reason for that. They want to know who she really is. And we cut quickly to where?
Oh, it's all a dream. She wakes up.
And that's why her outfit can change, because in your dreams you can...
Do what you want.
Yeah.
It's just this bit that's the dream, not the whole of the first episode. we should point out.
Of course. She's breathing heavily and anxiously, and she can't believe that she made such an elementary mistake. But Edwin, that's her husband, Edwin Kingston, assures her that no one would have noticed. And I think not just only not noticed, but wouldn't care.
No.
She's making a big deal about this.
Because it occurs to her, yes. But other people either won't know or won't care, most likely.
Yeah, they won't. But even if they do notice and realise that it's a mistake, that would not lead them to believe that she is somehow faking or
her entire identity. Yeah.
Anyway.
He makes reference to this being another anxiety dream, so she's obviously been having some issues with this.
Well, you would do, I think, if you were doing what she's doing. It's a stressful position to be in where you're always on guard. And I think, and maybe we can discuss this a little bit later in this episode, I mean, there should be real life serious consequences if she gets caught out.
You would think so.
In any case, she accepts that she was flustered and resolves to slow down in future when this happens, but panics a bit at the thought of making any more mistakes.
Yes, well, we get a couple of key bits of background information here. So obviously she's done a lot of preparation for this. This is something that's very important to her, and it's not a case of winging it every day.
Sure.
And her husband is not the one pushing her because he's quite happy for her to stop and let it go.
Well, yeah, she stops him when he's about to speak and warns him not to say that he told her she doesn't have to do this. And then they have a laugh when he claims he wasn't, but obviously...
Yeah, he was going to tell her to stop making mistakes. Yes.
Yes. So later...
Well, quite conveniently, she's been woken from her dream right when she had to get up.
How do we know?
Because she gets up.
No, we cut. Could be any time.
No, we see her getting out of bed.
Maybe to go to the top. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you often have to, especially at that age, I'd imagine, take a leak.
Okay.
Anyway, she gets up and finds Alfie waiting for her in the study.
Excited for your first day as an official employee at Jacobson Moore?
I'm just trying to stay calm. No, we have a plan. I need to execute it. I hope you're not doing your homework last minute, darling.
Homework's on your desk. Just making a list of questions for you to ask Mrs. B. I need to know as much as possible about how their computer systems work from the inside.
Let's redo number 3, okay? What led to the fall of the Roman Empire?
Hubris sums up the whole thing. Oh, and be on the lookout for a way to get passcodes.
Patience. We're nowhere near passcodes. Right now, I just have to continue to build trust with Olympia. If she trusts me, she's going to give me greater access.
If Olympia's the one who hid the documents for Wellbrexa saying opioids were addictive, she's not going to just hand them over to you, no matter how much she trusts you.
No one expects anyone to hand over anything. And what I'm not hearing, Alfie, is that you'll expand your answer.
I'll expand my answer if you try for the passcodes.
I unilaterally reject those terms, Your Honor, driven as they are by my grandson's hubris. No shortcuts. Now I gotta go if I'm gonna grab some early FaceTime with Olympia and Julian. We know Mondays they switch off custodies, so they arrive together, usually arguing.
Fine, the twins did eat an entire gallon of ice cream at midnight, but in my defense, they don't have smaller sizes at bodegas.
What's your thoughts on Alfie? Do you like him?
No.
Why not? Precocious?
He's too precocious and he's too perfect with these. Well, hopefully we see him make mistakes in future episodes, but so far he's whatever needs done, he's able to do it without across a wide range of different skills.
Yeah, but I think we're shown here that he's a very smart individual. So maybe
there's a lot of smart kids that can't do things like faking entire identities.
But if you're into that type of thing these days,
maybe.
I don't mind him. I quite like him. He could get a bit sickening. He could, if he's too perfect, as you say.
Yep.
I want to see him make a mistake which perhaps puts Maddie in a bit of peril.
Yes.
And I think that does relate, the talk of hubris in that clip could relate to all of them. And
for sure.
I'm wondering,
written down later on,
okay, I'm wondering who is it referencing them all, or is it talking about the firm, the bad guy, the perceived bad guy, or is it talking about Maddie herself doing what she's doing? Is this going to be the demise of her in the long run?
Well, at this point, she thinks that everything's on track, doesn't she? That her plan's going well, so that's...
Yeah, but alone feeling she is nervous. It's not as if she's overly confident.
No, she's not. But she thinks she can do it.
Yeah. Anyhow, as we heard there, Julian and Olympia are indeed arguing about Julian playing the sort of the good cop before they are interrupted by Maddie herself, who compares the synchronised timing of them all arriving together at work to a couple of teen girls at summer camp.
Yes.
And I think it's quite, Julian always seems to appreciate her, not outrageous, but unusual, perhaps edgy comments and remarks. That,
Yes, well, we saw that last week.
yeah, he smiles. It's almost as if he is in real life trying to not smile.
That's it. At this point, Julian asks her for her views on the topic.
Yeah, I think, topic of ice cream. And it's obviously he's trying to put her in an awkward position.
Yes, but she tells him that whatever the subject is, she's on Olympia's side, as that's who pays her bills.
Which I think elicits a satisfied grin from Olympia herself. Julian praises her honesty, and again, she rubs their noses in it by claiming to be honest to a fault, as we see the title is briefly displayed, and I like this modern usage of it.
She then drops in what we assume is a pre-prepared line about her $40 dinner allowance.
Yeah, she wants to know if this can be split over 2 meals or by 2 people. But Julian tells her to, I think he's getting a bit of revenge here. He says, well, talk to your boss. But she shows she's learned her lesson.
She says she can't afford Olympia's time, and Olympia at this point tells her that orientation goes through Mrs. Belvin. And we know that Madeline already knows that because she was talking to Alfie earlier about questions for Mrs. B.
Yes. And so we find her trying to catch up with the aforementioned Mrs. B, who is a very stern person, but tells her that she will look into this question of hers.
She also tells her she doesn't like being called Mrs. B, but it's too late to do anything about it.
That's fair enough. At least you know. There's no point in trying to fight a nickname or whatever. And then when Madeline asks her about how to bring up an old case file, she stops and turns and asks why she would be looking to do this on her first day, which is, I suppose, a reasonable question.
Yeah, so this is, Madeline needs to be careful if she's going to be putting this sort of question to people.
Yeah, and we can see her remembering what she promised herself. She takes a deep breath.
Yeah.
How does she respond?
Well, she gives one of her little spiels about needing this job, and at her age they're looking for reasons to fire you, and I think she's got a collection of these little things that she can just throw out if she gets into trouble.
Yeah, she just wants to sort of get ahead of the workload. Be prepared.
To me it comes across as inauthentic, but
Really?
they don't obviously take a pick up
Yeah,
on
but
it.
it's because you know.
Maybe it's because I know,
Yeah. And after a tense pause, this seems to satisfy Mrs. B, who informs her that Olympia would be the person to grant her access.
She's then shown her office, which already has a couple of occupants.
Yeah, it's Billy and Sarah's office with her desk squeezed into the middle. And again, we're seeing this as a sort of the comic thread throughout this episode.
Yes.
And I do like the pairing.
I like Sarah's impatience with her. It's quite endearing.
Yeah.
Madeline's very excited about the fact that the desk goes up and down.
Yes, and Billy, as usual, is trying to be very positive, while Sarah is clearly not happy with the new arrangement, even though he tells them all they need to do is, rearrange it.
Yeah, and Madeline's not sure why Sarah's taking an attitude with her when they'd worked.
No, not an attitude, a tude. She's getting down with the lingo of the kids. I didn't even know that was a word, but
yeah,
I liked it.
Especially when they've worked well together previously. But Sarah points out that was before this office debacle.
Yes, but their attention turns to the arrival of Deirdre Lewis in Olympia's office, and Billy starts to explain that she is the lead plaintiff in a huge class action lawsuit before the threesome are summoned in.
Well, slightly before that, though, when he starts talking, Sarah shushes him and refers to Madeline as the competition and says he shouldn't do it. We should also point out the fact that they can see them is because all the walls are made of glass in this office.
Yeah.
So literally every office looks into every other office.
Mm-hmm. So they walk through, and as they do, Madeline stops just outside where she sees an upset woman and offers her a hanky.
Yes, Sarah asks Olympia if this is to do with the class action suit, but she's told that's not the case.
No, the woman who's crying turns out to be Deirdre's sister Tara, and the reason that they are there is not to do with the class action, but because Tara's son has been accused of murder. This is where this episode gets a little unbelievable, and the ethics of a lot of different people involved in this are questionable, and I think she'll ask the questions.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So we should point out that obviously there was a conversation there between Deirdre and Olympia, and I think we find out later what was being said.
We get into the main office, and an extremely upset Tara insists that Michael, that's her son,
Yes.
is not capable of such a crime. But Deirdre explains that an eyewitness found him standing over the body.
Yeah, that's partial information at this stage. We do find out a little bit more context later on.
Yeah, but it doesn't get any better for him.
Oh, I think it maybe does.
Well, yeah, right at the very end.
35 minutes later, he was found standing over the body.
Yeah,
it's not the same as
that's after investigation. At this point, just now,
yes,
they found
that's all they know.
The accused standing over a dead girl, and things are complicated even further, as that although he is 18, he has some developmental issues and has been unable to speak about what has happened.
Yeah, it's probably some kind of autism spectrum, we imagine.
And because of this, the public defender suggested taking a plea, which we can see has now invigorated Tara. Like, she was quite meek and tearful, but she is now very defensive, hence why they are there.
Yeah, so in lieu of Michael being able to say anything, she is speaking up for him and saying he could not have committed this crime.
Every parent, well, I've got to say every parent, most parents would say the same, but do you know what?
Murderers have parents.
Murderers have parents, yes. There's some pretty evil ones out there with bodies under all sorts of places, and they go, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Olympia, however, rightly points out, and this is a major issue here, that defending a criminal defence attorney is not her speciality, which then results in what I thought, well, it looks like at this point in time, is an outrageous threat from Deirdre to take her class action elsewhere. So this class action is obviously worth a lot of money to the firm.
Yeah.
If you don't defend my son, we'll go elsewhere. That is horrific for a number of reasons. Firstly, just ethically, it's like, you're here for this class action. That's what they agreed. There was no other promises. But secondly, and more importantly, I think from their point of view, you want firstly, you want a specialist. It doesn't even have to be the best, but someone who's an experienced criminal defence attorney would be better than a corporate commercial lawyer.
You're taking this leverage and using it to get the wrong thing.
Yes.
Yeah. What you've done now is got your son a defence attorney who has no experience, expertise, or probably knowledge of the relevant law in the area in which they're now being asked to practice on short notice in an unfamiliar, presumably, courtroom.
Not just that, but for your son has been caught standing, we'll find out with blood over his body and other paraphernalia lying around, standing over the body. It's pretty much the sort of smoking gun type situation.
There's the high bar to clear here.
He is in big trouble. You're going to need a miracle to get out of this one, especially when he's not even going to defend him. He's not speaking.
Yeah.
Let's say I just, at this point I'm thinking Olympia should say, right, beat it then, on you go, I'm not doing this. Because for her career as well, from her point of view, she's going to lose this one, you'd think, based on the probability at this stage and the evidence that they've got. She will not want to be involved in this. She shouldn't want to be involved in this.
Well, from what we've heard, it doesn't make any sense, especially when we now hear that the next hearing is not far away.
So, she buckles at this threat, and that's what we find out is in 3 hours' time.
3 hours, yes.
It's like, what? No, I can't do this.
And not only that, they're like way down the path, the jury's been chosen and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. So, we get that technique that we spoke about last week where we cut between Olympia being updated on her way to the court as we see Michael being led in there. And we learn that the victim was a 16-year-old girl, a soccer player and a very good student.
Yeah, this is what Olympia calls the bad facts.
Yes.
So the case against her.
And it gets worse.
She lived with her mother and stepfather, and not only was Michael found standing over her body, he was also covered in her blood, and there was a box of condoms there.
I mean, really?
And it was common knowledge that he had a crush on her.
It doesn't. Olympia should not be taking this case. You go, no, that's.
She has no reason to think that he's innocent apart from the mother's protestations.
Exactly. Pure, greed for the other case.
They're slagging off the public defender for suggesting he takes a plea. Is it? Well, look at the evidence.
Yeah, but that's the thing. This is terrible behaviour from Olympia, because what she has done is she knows that she is not the best person to defend, give him the best possible defence, but for her own benefit, the company's own benefit, i.e. getting the class action lawsuit, she's willing to sacrifice the best possible defence for him. That, no matter what you say, is unethical and horrible behaviour.
It's quite arrogant for her to assume that she'll be able to put on a better defence than someone who is a trained defence solicitor or lawyer.
Indeed. Yeah, if I was at this point, I'd be going, he's guilty. Case closed. You can take your class action elsewhere.
We see in the court that Olympia introduces herself to Michael, who doesn't respond. And
we Michael.
Yes. She tells him that people care about him, including her, and he appears to kind of take this in, but doesn't really react.
She doesn't care enough about him to get the best possible representation. Anyway,
we kind of move back and forward between, as you said, the courtroom and then exposition from Billy, Mr. X. Exposition.
Yeah, so we find out that the body was found behind the bodega, which is owned by Charlie's father.
Yes, so Michael's best friend, Charlie.
And he's going to MIT.
Charlie is, yes. And I've written here, Charlie, who is obviously the killer.
Exactly what I've got. We see Charlie enter and immediately know he's a guilty party. So he comes in with his father, Jimmy.
Olympia almost has a heart attack when Charlie and his family show up in the courtroom.
This is incredible, yes. So they are going to be called as character witnesses, so therefore should not be anywhere near the court, just these proceedings just now.
They insist they just want to offer their support to Michael, and you're thinking, oh, they're far too involved here.
Yes, and this isn't how it works. Showing your support, no. That's, you don't, it's, I mean, they're idiots.
Yeah. In the corridor, there's more bad news for Olympia.
What's that?
The judge is Erin Bowser.
Why is that bad news?
Well, presumably by reputation. We don't get any more information about that. But
however, fortunately, Olympia has some background knowledge on her that might be useful.
Yes, she supports the Michigan college football team.
Is it? I was going to ask you that. So Michigan, I didn't recognise it as a professional team.
No, it's a college team. So Michigan Wolverines. Yeah.
Okay, and she uses this to ingratiate herself with the judge by making a football comparison with her team when they were in dire straits themselves, which does the trick and gets a continuance.
I liked the bit before that, though, when she bemoaned a non-specific call. She just knew that they'd lost and assumed there must have been a bad call. And the judge calls it a travesty. Now
sitting in a new configuration in the threesomes office, which allows Sarah to keep an eye on Olympia, they are confident that it should be okay if she has managed to get, 2 weeks of a delay.
However, she's very uncomfortable at the moment because she thinks Madeline is looking over her shoulder and copying her work.
Sarah does think, however, that in any case, it's a waste of time. There's no upside here.
Madeline thinks the upside is that they might be able to secure an acquittal for the potentially innocent person.
This is the first point in this season, well, maybe not the first point, but in this episode certainly, there's no reason for her to think this based on the evidence we've got.
This is main character syndrome, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. He is most probably guilty based on what we know.
But even if he's not, they're not the best people.
They're not the best. But it's a contradiction as well in terms of she's happy for this highly likely guilty party to receive a defence of some sort.
Yeah.
But we know that her motives, we've said this before, we said it last week, unless we find out for sure that there was illegal activities by the law firm Jacobson Moore, then they're also entitled just to to defend their client, the pharmaceutical.
They're also not entitled to disclose confidential documentation.
Yeah.
Even if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Mrs. B interrupts them.
Yeah, she confirms that Madeline can spread her $40 meal allowance across 2 meals if she works past 7 p.m.
She leaves abruptly, and Olympia returns to tell them that they do have 2
days.
Yes. Until the trial commences. Things look bleak as neither Billy nor Sarah have turned up any obvious errors in terms of the public defenders.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit later. We've now moved to Olympia's office and they're reporting. Yes, they report that they haven't found any procedural errors and there's no issues at the precinct. And Madeline then makes a really sort of snide comment to Sarah about how they can all be looking at different things and that's the benefit of having 3 people.
You think it's snide?
I think it's really good because Sarah's been moaning about her copying her work and stuff. And she's
but Sarah, I don't know, because Sarah is quite a negative, moany person. So I think in this case, you're looking to, okay, let's not. She is.
I think Madeline's been irritated by Sarah and this is her responding to that.
Yeah, so I think it's legitimately, it's like, well, you've already said that it's a waste of time, but we've got a job to defend, so that's not that.
I think she's doing it in a snidey way.
I think it's a legitimate way. I think
it can be both legitimate and snidey.
No, snide means that she could be quite abrupt or she could be quite to the point, but snide means that it's not legitimate.
There's a hint of meanness, a streak of meanness to it. That's how I'm interpreting it, which is why I'm using that phrase.
Fine.
Anyway, the contribution that Madeline has come up with is that the eyewitness was 84 and therefore likely to be either visually impaired or cognitively impaired.
Well, and I think she doesn't quite agree with the terminology, but she does accept that they should try and discredit the old geezer's eyesight.
Yes. Olympia agrees with this and asks them to look into it, and she'll try and sell the idea up the food chain. Who's up the food chain from her on this?
Well, I think she's got to get sign-off from Elijah, or maybe a senior, yeah.
Before she leads a line in court. Like for every possible
No, I think
argument.
this is because it's a very
Because they're going to attack
unusual.
somebody.
Yeah, it's a very unusual case, and again, she's not an experienced criminal defence lawyer.
Maybe they should be speaking to one of those.
Yes. On the way out in the corridor, Olympia thanks Elijah for his Michigan information before being stressed at seeing Julian in Senior's office, and he reminds her of their cabin trip in November, which is going to be after her divorce has been finalised. I think he's trying to calm her down and make her look at something pleasant in the future. I don't get this. It's all a bit strange.
Yes, yeah. So they're hiding the fact that they're seeing each other.
I mean, they're being divorced. It's not as if he's trying to woo her back.
No. Well,
We've not seen that.
No, I do understand it though, because if you irritate the other one, then they can start making unreasonable demands about things.
Maybe, but that's to assume that he would be irritated that there's no. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing to see to suggest here that Julian is pining for her.
No, but what you probably have on Olympia's point of view is she would be annoyed if he was dating one of the women in the office. So she assumes that he'll be annoyed from the other way. So she's trying to just play it a bit coy.
Maybe. So she joins Julian with Senior, and he does not make things easier by suggesting that she encouraged Deirdre and Tara to leverage their class action as she wanted to take on their case. And again, maybe we're labouring this point, but maybe things are different in America, and you do have these multiple roles, but it seems odd that Senior would say you should, this is the reputation of the firm as well.
Yeah, so she feigns offence, and but Senior doesn't need to be persuaded. He's already looked at this and decided that she does have to do it.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I suppose if I'm going to try and see it from another position, another angle, if it is apparently such an open and shut case,
It might not take long.
and it might not, there'd be no expectations of winning it.
Yeah, and you keep your class action. But then you might lose your class action anyway if they're so mad that you didn't get the acquittal.
Well, that's it,
If
yeah.
it's a legitimate request.
Yeah.
Anyway, he tells her that he'll give her a hard time after lunch instead, and she leaves in triumph, which prompts Julian to say that most dads choose their own kids in a divorce.
Yeah, but this is business, not, you don't take sides in this.
No, but Senior's response is quite interesting.
Yes. He cuts him down by simply stating that most kids haven't done what he has, and jokes about offering his services as a peace broker. So that's quite interesting. Hopefully we'll find out what's he done.
Yeah, because there's not any hint of that. Even later on when Julian and Olympia are talking to one another, there's not anything like, oh, you know what you did, or you're the reason that this is ending.
But you see, that's the thing as well. If he, let's say he's been cheating on her,
Yeah.
then she should not feel guilty about seeing someone else after they've agreed to divorce. I mean, anyway, no doubt we'll find out in the course of the episodes.
Talking about peace broking, the reference that Senior makes here is to the time he brokered peace between a Texas oil baron and a bird watcher, who we find out about later on. We now head over to the apartment of the elderly eyewitness.
Yes, and we again see Madeline use the people skills and experience that her younger colleagues seem to lack.
Could you take your shoes off? You wouldn't know the filth in this city. I'm talking dog doo-doo, cat yah-yah, roach residue, not to mention
Okay, that's...
human semen all over the place. I know what I'm talking about. I've been living here since the 70s.
Great. I'm glad we got that cleared up. Okay, look, we don't have much time. My colleague is standing where you allegedly saw Michael.
Allegedly? Why? Because I'm old?
What? No, it's because it's 46 feet away. And tell him the Canassa thing.
She's young. We'll give her grace. Audrey, my name is Madeline Matlock, like the old TV show.
Oh, I love that show.
Me too. All those dramatic courtroom showdowns, am I right? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, real lawying's a lot more boring, I'm afraid. We check and double check, which is why we wanted to know where you were standing. But first, do you mind me asking, who do you pay to clean? Because your home is absolutely immaculate.
Oh, this is all me.
Is that so? Well, I guess I've lowered my standards. Probably because my husband was a slob. And it sounds blasphemous to say now that he's passed, but truth is the damn truth.
Second husband ain't in neither?
Oh, no, I don't want a second husband. Now, would you mind taking a look outside? Can you see my colleague?
Sure can. Latino male, 5'10", give or take, brown eyes, nice tush.
Naughty.
Okay, great. So he's got 20/20 vision and we've got nothing. Let's go.
So, can you walk us through the chain of events as precisely as you can, which I assume is very precise?
What does he tell them and what's the outcome?
Well, he starts talking to Madeline about the timeline as Billy makes his way up to the apartment and Sarah tells him that there's some kind of geriatric mating ritual going on. But he talks about the show 60 Minutes, which I think is a CBS evening show. It's shown at the same time. Each time it's on, in theory. And he talks about cooking his pot pie and the number of commercial breaks he cooks it for, and then when he left it to cool, and they work out the time between when he heard the scream and when he called, or when he saw Michael over the body and when he called 911.
Yeah, so they've destroyed the perceived timeline that they...
Well, Sarah and Billy don't understand because they don't have any concept of watching TV live with adverts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm losing that concept as well. It's who does that anymore?
No.
It's a ridiculous thing to do unless you're watching sport.
Pretty much.
Also, I mean, I've mentioned this so many times over the different podcasts. It's a nod that must be here to My Cousin Vinny.
Okay.
Where there was a similar piece of evidence that actually, I mean, we've not mentioned this before, I'm not sure, but we might during our new format.
That's one of the options.
We could slip in a movie here or there, and that would certainly be one that would meet the criteria, I think.
I don't see why not. Unless it's more than 90 minutes, in which case we're not doing it.
It's a great movie, it doesn't matter how long it is.
Anyway, we immediately cut to Madeline delivering this information to Olympia in her office.
Yeah, and essentially what she says is that they now know that Autry heard the scream 32 minutes before he saw Michael standing over the body and called 911. But Jimmy, the bodega owner, called 911 4 minutes before him and claimed this was just after the scream. Therefore, Jimmy appears to be lying.
Well, one of them is wrong,
yes,
essentially. And that probably undermines the prosecution case quite a lot if their two witnesses don't corroborate one another.
For sure.
And also, if it's 32 minutes, then that takes away from the idea that Michael just committed the murder and was still on the scene.
Also, I'd be thinking, what's the point in calling 911 after 32 minutes, half an hour after?
I heard a scream half an hour ago and there's a dead person.
Yeah, Autry's a bit of a scumbag as well.
He doesn't care.
No, he doesn't. So why make a call in the first place? You live in a big city, you hear screams, you either ignore it or you action it straight away.
It's maybe because the police didn't show up. He thought, I may get this cleared up out my back drive.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. In the car.
Outside the bodega.
Olympia praises Madeline's work, but takes offence when Madeline tries to spread the credit.
Yeah, she thinks she's implying that she doesn't give Sarah enough of it herself.
Yes. So she tells Madeline to stay behind in the car like a bad child, while the rest of them go inside, which leaves Madeline looking a little bit put out.
Inside, Olympia puts the new information to Jimmy, who denies waiting to place the call and insists that the other witness must be wrong.
Well, you've skipped over the key point at the start of this scene.
What was that?
She finds out that the bodegas do sell small packs of ice cream.
All right, yes. Because, Julian...
We heard in the clip at the start that you said that they don't.
Yeah. But yeah, she points to the CCTV cameras and says, okay, we'll simply check.
Back to the car, where Madeline is, I think, taking a bit of a risk by calling Alfie and speaking openly to him.
Yeah, she reminds him that Rome wasn't built in a day when he asks if she's got the passcodes as yet, but admits she doesn't even know if she's built up any trust.
Well, she's put her foot in things she thinks a little bit at the office that's affected these relationships, and then she warns him not to eat pizza before his dinner because she's going to be late home. Is that what she says? It's a little bit...
No, don't let Edwin...
Let Edwin eat pizza. Okay.
Yes. She's obviously feeling a bit down and tells him it's now a good time for him to say it. What's it?
MWBSP.
Okay, but this conversation is ended when Madeline sees a group of schoolgirls arguing about whether they should go in and confront Jimmy. And as they debate, she very overtly steps out the car and takes pictures of them. Now, if
the sound on.
If the old Matlock had done this, it would look extremely creepy, and you can't just go taking pictures of schoolgirls.
And ideally, they wouldn't notice as well. When she's about, 20 feet away from them with a camera out pointing right at them, clicking away.
Really creepy. But her colleague exit and Olympia sternly reminds her that she was told to stay in the car. That isn't, you can tell her as your boss, I don't want you to come into the bodega.
Well, the problem she's done here, she hasn't explained why. If she told Madeline why she didn't want her to get out of the car, she would have understood.
Well, yes and no, but yeah, treating her like that, don't get out of the car. I was like, no, if I want to get out of the car, I will. You could.
She's handling this badly, yeah.
Yeah, she's very much so. Anyway, she steps away, Olympia that is, to take a call while Billy informs Madeline that Jimmy is refusing to hand over the footage without a subpoena.
Yes, so Olympia comes off her call and says that she needs to do something and she has to take the car.
And they have to try and find a connection between the victim and Jimmy in order to get the subpoena, but warns Maddie not to go anywhere near the bodega. They're standing right outside it.
Well, this is the problem. She doesn't want her anywhere near it. She says she's not playing.
As she drives off, Sarah smiles as she admits that she's not mad that Olympia is pissed off at her.
Well, so the impression I got from this is that it's normally Sarah who takes this sort of stuff off of Olympia. And so she's pleased to see someone else getting it instead of her, rather than just being pleased at Madeline getting.
I don't know. I think because, as we know, she sees Madeline as a rival.
I mean,
so
it could be that as well.
Yeah.
Madeline at this point is almost exposed.
Yeah, they decide they need to head back to the office, and it causes a problem for her when they ask her which train they should take, as she lives in Queens, so this obviously is Queens where they are.
Yeah.
Now, she claims that she only takes the bus, which Sarah aggressively questions. I think that's a bit of an overreaction.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange reaction without any prompting or any reason.
Yeah, I mean, if you had suspected Madeline of being something she wasn't, this might be another little thing adds to it. But there's no suggestion that they in any way.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know about New York, but I think it's fairly standard. Some folk don't like taking subways.
Yeah, I mean,
or don't.
Apparently, it's a reputation whether it's true or not, but it's a fairly. Yeah, it can be a dangerous place. Maybe this is back, and maybe it's cleaned up these days, but. Even
I think they were hiring a rat catcher last year. So.
But even today, down in London, for example, which would be sort of equivalent, there are people who would rather take the bus.
Yeah.
Maybe you're claustrophobic. Maybe
there's folk who wait in the platforms to murder you by shoving you in front of the train.
That happens, yeah.
I've heard all about that. Lots of podcasts. Anyway, Madeline has to come up with a story quick, and she scrambles a little bit before telling Sarah that she was mugged on the subway and is scared to go back down there.
This does the trick, and Sarah, she's a bit sort of embarrassed but happy to move on as Madeline tells them about the girls she saw and then shows them some pictures. And again,
I like the fact that the first picture is just of her thumb.
Yeah. As impressed as within a few seconds Sarah has used modern technology to work out exactly who she is and which school she goes to. I'm not sure.
That's super creepy. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah, I mean, there will be some sort of reverse image lookup, but
yeah, if she's on a website with her name, school and photo.
Yeah, because
so maybe she's been in a competition for something. I guess if she's won an award or something.
Well, it does say she's part of the lacrosse.
Yeah, so it could be a lacrosse website. Maybe that would make sense.
Yeah. Anyway, the three of them are now standing a little awkwardly outside said high school, and Sarah and Maddie both admit that popular girls scare them.
Yeah, no, I could relate to that when I was at school.
Okay.
But anyway, they say they have one shot at this and stomp on Madeline's glasses.
Yeah, well, Madeline stomped, it's her idea.
Yes.
Before walking over to the group and deliberately bumping into them to make it look like they caused the breakage.
Yes, they bump into this girl, Aaliyah, who, as we know, is an evil leaper.
Yes.
That's a reference that no one who didn't listen to our last podcast is going to get.
Well, you might have watched
Quantum League.
Enemy. Yeah.
If you haven't, go and watch it. Yeah. Anyway, they have a conversation. Aaliyah apologises and Madeline tries to reassure her. She kind of has this weird flip between being really upset and then really reassuring. And
but I think she's manipulating. So she's being upset, but then
once she's got the reaction she wants, she then flips it around to be the comforter and get the information that she wants.
Exactly, yeah. She is a master manipulator.
Yeah, but knowing about it, it looks quite, like, from our point of view. Yeah, anyway. She says she's investigating what happened to Ariana Perez, and Aaliyah says that she actually knew her and knows that Michael could not have killed her.
Yes, and more than that, she asks who did, or who they think did, and what do they say?
They say Creepy Jimmy, the owner of the bodega, who was obsessed with Ariana.
Yes, and is known as CJ.
Yes. At this point, Sarah starts bouncing.
Yeah, with excitement, and we find out why in Olympia's office.
Yes, she now understands some references that she saw in text messages to a CJ, which now they know means Creepy Jimmy.
Yes, they then get a surprise when a kid spins around in her chair and asks who Creepy Jimmy is, and a slightly embarrassed Olympia tells them that it's her daughter who has a stomachache and she had to go and pick her up from school. That was obviously the call she got.
This is Kat, which is Julian and Olympia's
Yes.
youngest. Oh no, they're twins.
Twins,
aren't
yeah.
they?
8-year-olds, yeah.
So we then again have a wee skip. They're now outside the office. You can see the girl still on the chair through the window by
Yes.
the glass wall.
They now realise that CJ, being Michael's boss, is good reason for the subpoena. And so Olympia instructs them to go and get it as they head to the bodega. But what does she tell a confused Madeline? Confused and upset Madeline.
Very confused, very upset. She's told to stay behind. And when she questions this decision, saying she thinks that she's done a lot to get Olympia to trust her, she's told that she's barely known her for a week and this is a ridiculous amount of privilege to be coming out with.
Yeah.
Thinking she should be trusted already.
I think she feels quite belittled, or you would be.
Yeah.
If it was a normal situation, yeah.
Olympia says that the fact Madeline thinks it's okay to question her judgment, which she has earned the right to exercise at her discretion, is another display of privilege.
Yeah, I think it's a bit harsh, that.
I think Olympia's playing a game with her, though. I don't know why, and there's no reason for it.
No, it might just to test her.
Maybe.
To see if she can handle it. That's a bit high pressure. She expects any of her colleagues or her staff to be able to handle this.
You have to work at a level, you have to work at a pace, and if you can't handle it, and if you can't do what you're asked to do, then it's not what we want.
And especially at her age, she's maybe just seeing if she can crack early doors because she wants to find out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
At the bodega, Charlie hands over the footage on his laptop whilst Jimmy pleads that he was only trying to hide the fact that he was selling alcohol to minors. Yes, not a murder.
Charlie then comes out with a random spiel about never having, he should have never invited friends over that night, and Jimmy has a line about, it's okay, when they watch the tapes they'll see that I didn't do anything.
So back in the office, the four of them watch the footage and see that Jimmy's story is true. He was cleaning up the party, hence why he waited to call 911. But
he said he didn't wait. So it doesn't really check out, does it?
No, but he's saying he didn't wait because he didn't want to say he was cleaning up a party.
Right, so he was lying, but he was lying for a different reason.
Yes, they now know that, yeah.
Did he not think that a murder trial was maybe more important?
Well, no, maybe not, because
his licence is his livelihood.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Julian stops by to have a moan at Olympia for not telling him that their daughter had come back from school because he had to find out when he saw her in the office.
Yeah, and he's worried about what Senior will think, and I think she makes a reference to his weird-ass relationship with his father.
Yes.
However, this squabbling is brought to an end when Billy calls her over and shows her footage of Michael stealing the very same brand of condoms that were found at the scene. Again, guilty. You can have this. We'll wrap this one up. There's no point. Madeline, you can take this. You fancy this whole case yourself? A waste of space, this one.
And this is the point that Olympia's trying to get over to Tara when they have their meeting.
Yeah, it's a bit later. Tara is floundering in her defence with this, after being presented with this new evidence, and still insists that her son is innocent, as Olympia reveals the plea offer has now been removed.
Yes, and they're going to lead with this when they get into court, the prosecution.
Yeah, and I think Tara asks her, do you believe me? She says it doesn't matter what any of them believe, it's only what she can make the jury understand. And she's going home to do some work to try and put together an explanation for the video. Now, at this point, I said before, Madeline has no issue with lawyers defending their clients, even though it looks 99% likely that they are guilty. She understands they've got a right, it's a job, this is what they've got to try and do.
Unless they're defending pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
Anyway, Olympia leaves and Madeline gets into basically an argument. Not an argument, but she gets an earful from Tara about parenting.
Again, I can understand that she is obviously under extreme pressure. However, this was snide.
It was, and slightly unfair, but you understand it's only because of the circumstances. It's not because of anything else or any personal thing.
I mean, she's a bit manic and tries to persuade Madeline of Michael's innocence by stating that if he was a killer, she would know. But Madeline rightly says that Olympia will give her a great defence. She also says that there were things in her own daughter's life that she didn't know about and is stunned by her response. What does she say?
Well, she says that means that Madeline took her eyes off the ball, and she's not doing that. She's got her hands on the wheel. She mixes her metaphors a little bit.
No, she says she wasn't paying attention and was asleep at the wheel. She didn't mention eyes in the ball.
Okay, well.
You're mixing them.
I'm mixing the metaphors.
Yeah, which is, again, it's quite cruel, I suppose. There was no real need for that.
No, but again, it's just a reaction. It's not a well thought out sort of discussion that she's having here.
She doesn't realise the impact that this has had.
She doesn't know what happened to Madeline's daughter.
We see this because Maddie returns home. She's very downbeat and tells Alfie that she loves him. And as he heads off to bed, he again says, MWBSP.
Yes, and Edwin asks what that's about, and we hear from Madeline that it's short for Mom would be so proud. I'm pretty sure Mom would be so high is probably more likely in these circumstances. I don't think their daughter really would care about this, and she would probably think, stop wasting your life trying to avenge me and start living your life properly.
Yeah, I would have found if I've got addiction problems are often, there's an underlying issue that has caused the reliance on drugs. If it's not this, it'll be alcohol or any other manner of
There's
pharmaceuticals.
No reason to think that she'll be proud anyway of this. They're just kidding themselves on to make themselves feel better.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Quite possibly, yeah. But we'll find out a little bit more. So what happened was, this is how it all started. Alfie was reading on Reddit about Jacobson Moore and apparently hiding these different files. So it was him.
It's a conspiracy theory online.
Yes. And Madeline promised him that she would investigate and figure it all out. She starts crying and admits that that day has been really hard and they hug. But it's clearly still playing on her mind, as Edwin is still trying to assure her later that night.
We were paying attention. Addicts are liars. Ellie hid it well. That's why we didn't know about it for so long.
I knew something was off. I remember it must have been about 6 months before I was watching her eat cereal and she'd go to take a bite and just sort of forget what she was doing.
Madeline.
Yes, I'm just saying I knew something was off months before that first overdose. The cereal. And she was irritable. And I didn't say anything. All those months, I just wrote it off as hormones, and maybe if I'd said something...
Madeline, we can't re-examine what happened to Ellie every time a case brings up a new feeling.
No, you're right. You're right. I just have to leave emotion out of this.
How are you going to do that?
Just nice, slow, deep breaths.
I'm serious.
I'll be fine. I'm just going to think about the case now.
Kathy Bates is fantastic, you have to say.
She's really good all the time in this show.
Yeah, brilliant. So we cut to the next morning and see her staring intensely as Alfie eats his cereal and shows her his latest work.
Yeah, I think she's away in her mind somewhere else, focusing on the case perhaps. But
no, she's staring at him because that's what happened to her daughter. She's making sure that...
Oh, right, the cereal.
Yeah.
Got you. Now I know what happened. Right. Anyway, yes, he's done this fake news report.
It's a real news report, but...
Yeah, so how's he planted this on a real news site? I didn't really understand what he's done here.
Maybe created another one. So there's obviously, if there was a mugging, it'll be reported in several outlets. So he's taken one of them, changed the image, changed the name, but it still references... So if people search for a mugging in Queens, that will still come up.
Yeah, okay.
Wouldn't be very hard to do at all.
Yeah, but it wouldn't look realistic, like enough to persuade someone who was looking for news that was from a real news site.
Doesn't have to be, but I mean, it doesn't. A local mugging doesn't have to be in, that makes
sense. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
this kind of sets a marble rolling for Madeline, and we then see Olympia in court.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, this is an important point. She says she's impressed by how real it looks.
Yes, and he says it's not hard to do if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, if, for example, you went to MIT or are going to MIT.
Yeah, or used computers a lot, yeah.
At the court, Olympia has Jimmy on the stand where he has to admit that he allowed the kids to drink in the bodega, but only as he thought it was safer than somewhere else. That's not really... parents can do that. It's not your job to be... You're really taking such a massive risk. If he's worried about your licence, your livelihood, creating an underage drinking den...
It must be really profitable for him to even want to do it.
Yeah, and Yeah, I think maybe there is an undertone of creepiness here. Maybe it wasn't just about
Just like having the girls around and stuff like that, yeah.
because they will talk.
Yeah.
Guys, where can we? This guy sells us drink. I mean, as teens, especially in New York, America, where it's a higher drinking age, that would spread like wildfire. Before you know it, everyone would, it'd be like some sort of movie where, you know, there's a party next night and there's 300 kids there and there's a live rock band playing Blink 182,
probably
19, whatever it is, 911. I don't know. Anyway,
he's asked about being called Creepy Jimmy, and he says it's probably because he asked him to stop spreading around the fact that they serve minors, and she asks if he was therefore not surprised about this nickname.
Yeah, I think he says, well,
he brings up the fact that Michael, he says he gets surprised by that, but also by other things, like when I saw Michael taking the condom. That's not your business to bring this up. Why are you bringing this evidence in? No. This is a little bit strange.
Yeah. Now this in turn surprises Olympia, but he clarifies that he didn't actually see him with his own eyes. He's talking about the tape with all the CCTV footage.
Yes, he says at the time all he saw was Michael leaving in a hurry since he was in the freezer section and he could only see the door.
Yes. And so this seems to set something off in Olympia's mind, and she asks and gets a 10-minute recess. In the corridor, she meets with Madeline, who immediately tries to smooth things over.
With a weird fart-based analogy.
Yeah, in her own unique way, by claiming that whatever way the wind blows, she will always think the fart came from her direction. But she's fine with this. So she's saying, okay, I know we're not going to be best of pals, you won't trust me, but I've accepted that.
Fortunately, their ambitions are aligned on this occasion.
Yes. She insists, Madeline that is, that she needs to go to the bodega, which is exactly what Olympia was going to do anyway.
Yes, and she explains this was her plan all along. She needed Madeline not to be a familiar face, so that if they needed her to go at any stage, like now, she could do so.
Olympia doesn't think that Jimmy could see the door from the freezer section and wants to know if he was lying. And Madeline asks if she wants to know what she is thinking. So she's obviously got her own...
I presume she's going to say that she thinks the video is edited.
Yes.
So we don't hear that though. We see her in the bodega.
This is good. I like this scene.
And I assume this is Regina that's working, the wife or the stepmother.
I'm not sure. I thought it was a younger girl.
Doesn't matter. Two different women. Anyway, one of them is working at the counter and Madeline comes out with a tall tale.
Yes, well, she wants help firstly trying to buy some condoms from the stand, which is out of reach. And she tells the woman that although she can't get pregnant, she still can get an STD, and her nursing home is like a petri dish.
Yes. That's a pleasant thought, isn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. In fact, she wants to be filmed doing this.
Yes, it's sort of a coming of age sort of thing.
Well, so yeah,
at the other end of the scale.
She can show her friends,
yes, and
they can have a laugh about what she's purchasing.
She mentions a specific friend, I think Cindy something. I think she's used that name before.
She used it earlier on. Mm-hmm. I think it's just a reference. It was
maybe it's a real person.
It's not. Well, it is a real person. I checked.
Okay,
but it's not a real person of any note.
Okay, maybe it'll be a character in the show.
Maybe, yes.
Outside, we see Madeline on her phone, presumably talking to Olympia, saying, "We got him."
Charlie is now on the stand as a character witness and explains that they were friends from elementary school, him and Michael that is, but they have are now going in different paths, what with him going to MIT. And Olympia asks why he was upset on the day that they came to the bodega. And he explains that it was because she thought his dad was guilty.
Yes, and that's upsetting.
She then asks why the footage was on his computer in the first place.
Yes, he says his parents are bad at tech, so he manages it for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you store it on a laptop. It's generally on some sort of server, isn't it?
It depends on the system, I guess. Maybe it's a cheaper system.
She then shows the court the footage of Michael stealing the condoms, followed by the video of Madeline failing to reach them. The DA objects, but Olympia again uses another sports reference, and the judge overrules the objection, allowing Madeline's driver's licence to be displayed, showing what?
Her height.
Which is?
5'2". I wonder if this might be a problem for Madeline in the future, that her driving licence, which is obviously fake, is now on court record.
Potentially. I've got some information that we find out from that. It's not relevant to this episode, but maybe get to it in the trivia.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we discovered here is that she's 5'2", the same height as Michael, who stands up beside her in the court to,
and they are the same
to show
height.
this. Yes. Which apparently shows that the footage was doctored, as he could not have reached him. But I think Olympia actually says Michael would have to have been standing on his tiptoes, but we don't see his feet, so he could have been on his tiptoes. She's just gave an out.
No,
here.
he's not even reaching up. It's there in front of him.
Sure, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious it's a far taller person.
I'm surprised his mother didn't notice that when she was looking at the footage. Do you not know what height you're...
Sorry, did the mother see the footage?
Yeah, they showed it to her and she said, yes, that's Michael, the meeting when she got upset.
Right. I suppose, again, if you are in shock...
You don't really think about the detail, but...
And at this point, I think Olympia makes an accusation.
Yes, she says that it must have been someone Charlie's height who did it. And she says that the original footage... Well, he kind of like stumbles out with an I don't know sort of thing. And then she says the original footage is on its way to a lab to be processed, at which point she thinks this will be shown. He unravels quickly and claims that Ariana liked him and they were hiding this fact from Michael, but she gets scared for some reason and he grabbed her, she slipped. A likely story. Yes, and hit her head. None of that makes sense. Why would they be hiding it from Michael? Because, it's not, I don't know. Because he had a crush on Ariana. We know that from Ariana, and he might get upset about it because he's not, they don't view him as being emotionally capable of handling that. Okay, that's fair enough. But the whole went outside and she got upset over what? Well, probably when he whipped out the condoms. Yes, and said, right. So I was just going to give you a kiss. Yes. In the back alley, it's classy guy that I am. Yeah. Yeah, so she slipped, banged her head and died. Likely tale. Yes, very, very. And surely as well, we never really discussed that. And I think this is not a weakness of the show because it isn't this type of show. But if she fell backwards and hit her head, forensics, there'd be evidence. Autopsy would say, well, this has been caused by. Yeah, how did they accuse Michael of killing her? The fact that they've pulled this information out now shows how poorly prepared the prosecution case was. They thought it was a slam dunk. He's been found over the case, over the body. Yeah, there was a call. We don't need any more evidence. Yeah, surely you have to offer an explanation. Did he punch her to death? Did he hit her with a brick? Did he stab her? How did he kill her? You'd want to test your own evidence as well. Yeah. At some stage. We really don't have the resources for that. Yeah, it's pretty weak all round. Jimmy, Charlie's dad, had told him to deny doing it, so obviously he's confessed to his dad straight away. I think he says Jimmy found her. Did he? Yeah. Either way, he convinced Charlie not to admit that he committed the crime. As Charlie cries out to Michael that he's sorry. He's not really sorry. He's sorry he got caught. He's sorry he got caught, yeah, and he's not going to college. And he's led away, and Michael hugs Olympia when she tells him that he is now free before she catches Madeline looking over at Ariana's family, that's the victim. Yes, and Olympia says that at least they got justice, which Madeline agrees is everything. Yeah, it's quite a sinister and focused response. She's almost steepling her fingers. Yes. Exactly. Later, in her office, Olympia is moaning to Elijah about Julian complaining about their daughter when it was her week to have her. Yeah, and he points out that maybe she's not looking at this quite the right way. Yeah, I think he says, well, yeah, why didn't you tell him what was the reason? Yes, a wee nudge. And then we see her talking to Julian and apologising and saying that she hates this whole every other week mom thing. And he says that's probably why he did the ice cream thing as well. And it's the same for both of them. And he's got a weird ass relationship with his father. And his dad calls Al Gore a bird watcher. Yeah. This is why I'm slightly confused. Julian, in terms of this relationship and what's happening, seems perfectly reasonable. Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, you've not divorced anybody. Not yet. When you're doing, I've done this. So you don't know how the other person's going to react to stuff, and you worry that things might be, especially when there's kids involved. You worry that if I say the wrong thing, am I not going to see my kid for 2 weeks? Is there going to be a problem here? You know, and it's not always a case of what's legally right and wrong, and it's not always a case that you can rely on knowing the person because you've not known them in this situation before, and you don't know how they're going to be. Fair enough. I'll bow to your superior personal experience. Yeah. In any case, they agree that from then on they're going to put family first and hold hands as she leans her head on his shoulder, which again is, to me, is slightly odd behaviour. Yeah, I think that is odd. I agree. Yep. Which is seen by Elijah, who is understandably uncomfortable about it, and this in turn is noted by Madeline. How dodgy does she look, kind of sidestepping past with her eyes darting from side to side? Well, she's there to pick up everything, as much information, as much leverage as she can get. Yeah. We're going to start seeing her in the shadows, in the corners of meeting rooms and stuff. Yeah. Olympia admits to Julian when he presses her that she did give Deirdre the idea to leverage the class action case to get them to take on the criminal one. And he says that he doesn't want their divorce to be like the ones that his father had. Yes. So in what I've now called the U3 office. Oh, I've got the threesome office, yeah. U3's quite close to U3, when you
Yeah, that's only a UK reference.
Yeah, it's fine. Madeline goes to her desk, and Sarah says she's had them rearranged so that nobody's behind anybody, and even smaller desks are coming tomorrow.
Yeah, and after a prompt from Billy, apologises to her and tells her that she knows she is not out to get her. Madeline accepts this with a giggle and takes her 2 orders of food as she heads home. She passes by Olympia and Julian in their office, and after saying goodnight, her attitude changes when Olympia casually points out that she really did trust her.
Actually, what you did was not trust. It was manipulation. Trust would have been letting me in on the plan in the first place, instead of icing me out and making me feel like I messed up, which I've been so worried about, you have no idea. Now, you certainly don't have to trust me, but let's not twist what you did and call it trust. Thank you very much.
Can you believe her? I mean, she's not wrong.
Madeline Matlock, sir.
I remember. Like the old TV show.
Yeah.
So, you got the dates wrong.
I don't count the ABC years, because the ratings went down and it just didn't affect me as much.
See you later, Matlock.
Not one hint of irony there in her spiel to Olympia.
No, but what we're going to discuss in a moment, it's fantastic. The whole setup, again, it is very Kaiser Soze.
Yeah, you have to go back a long way, so it's not just in that moment.
No.
She's prepared this. It's
right from the very
2
start.
days ago at least.
It starts with the voucher.
And the fact that she's manipulating Billy and Sarah as well. She can't relax around them. They have to be put in the right places.
So that's the thing. She is the master of puppets here. She is manipulating everyone in an entire... And it's brilliant. She's extremely talented, and it's great what she's doing.
And that's why she's so upset when she makes a small mistake.
Yes. But it all comes back to, do you root for this character or not? Do you find her the good guy? If they have committed an illegal act as a corporation or individually on behalf of the corporation, then you can start to get behind her. We've not been shown that yet. But if it isn't, and it's purely driven by her grief, which is to an extent, I was going to say understandable, it's not. No one goes to these degrees generally through grief. If there's been no illegal activities, then this is really, really sinister and also highly illegal, and should result in her being incarcerated herself.
I think it's sinister and illegal either way. Even if they have done what she thinks they've done, the fact that she's convinced herself that these documents would have saved her daughter is a fantasy. And she's basing all this on this hunt for justice.
Yeah.
But it's not justice that she's after, it's vengeance.
Yes. And leaving all that aside, the fact that she's managed to get to a position where she can now access the personal and private files of hundreds of thousands of people, potentially.
In the company,
Yes, she's getting involved in cases that she shouldn't be. She might not even... I mean, in terms of that, does your license to practice not to expire? She said
you'd think there would be something that can be checked independently, because you won't have one in that name.
So in that case, she's practicing without the qualifications.
Yeah.
Certainly up to date ones.
I mean, so far she's not practiced. She's not appeared in court.
Okay.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, exactly right.
As far as the company are concerned, but she's providing input.
Yes.
Anyway.
The next thing we see is Olympia, who is surprised that all the others want her to apologise, even Sarah.
Yeah, she's quite indignant at first when they suggest that Madeline is right and she should apologise, especially because she could die the next day from old age.
Yes.
So
that's what I remind my parents all the time.
Yeah. There's no point in buying green bananas. That's what I tell them. Anyway, so she agrees to call to say sorry, but when Julian points to her free dinners that she'd left, she decides that maybe the personal touch would be better, and Billy gives her the Queen's address.
Oh, so now we think she's going to be caught out.
Well, yeah, this is it, isn't it? So we cut between the Kingston mansion and the Queen's apartment, and This could obviously be an issue for her as we see the limo pull up outside her actual home.
Yes, but on this occasion it's us who are being faked out.
Yes, at the same time, Olympia arrives at a very sort of dodgy, sketchy looking apartment block and knocks on the door, whilst at the same time unlocking her phone in case she has to place an emergency call. She wants to be prepared for this.
I think it's an emergency call. I think she's going to call Madeline.
No, I think that's ready to dial someone else, or just so that, yeah, that's what I think she's doing. Oh, I've got a question, I suppose, about that. We'll get to it in a second.
Yeah. Anyhow, just when Olympia's about to give up and walk away, Madeline does answer the door, and we see Edwin open the limo door to find the pizza that she told him not to have earlier.
Yes. And so Madeline opens the door. Olympia sees her. She is introduced briefly to Alfie, who
as we know doesn't like Madeline. Her story.
He walks off in a strop.
Yep.
And they have a quick chat. She declines an offer to come in for some tea, but does admit that trust comes hard to her, which is not fair if they're going to be working as a team. They are, however, not at the stage of hugging it out, and they laugh as she leaves.
And then things get a bit more sinister.
Very much so, yeah. We find out that the entire food voucher scenario was a carefully contrived setup from the very beginning in order to bring Olympia to the apartment. Why?
Because they're villains.
Well, they could be, yes. They're acting in villainous ways. You know, why did they want her there?
So that she would open her phone at their door?
They assumed that she would do what she's done here. They've got a hidden camera in the smoke alarm above it, and they capture her entering her PIN number for her phone. Now,
who does that?
Who does that? Yes, in 2024, I assume it's probably an iPhone she's got. I'm an Android guy, but you're an iPhone.
Yeah, just use your face to open it.
Face or thumbprint.
Even when this was filmed 3 years ago, I think.
It wasn't 3 years ago, was it?
Yeah, there was a delay, I think, in the film.
Really?
Yeah, because someone pointed out in one of the trivia sections somewhere that the bus fare was wrong in the first episode because it's gone up since they filmed it in New York.
Ah, right.
Anyway, yeah, it was filmed at least a couple of years before it.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that myself anyway. I don't trust you.
Yeah, you can find this.
Yeah, so
either way, the phone's still opened with face or fingerprint, yes.
Yeah, so it's an awful lot of work on the assumption, unless, of course, you could say that she has watched her do it before and knows that that's how she opens her phone.
Or it could just be a play that either way, she's improving her relationship with Olympia, and that's going to pay off down the road, even if they don't get the code right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think this is going to end up with Olympia tied to a bed and a block of wood between her ankles.
Yes. And I think the last line of the show is MWBS friggin' P. I quite like that.
Yeah, but it's in their heads.
Yeah, we don't know because we don't know the daughter and how she.
No, it could be she might have come back and said, "Avenge me."
No, but remember in the last episode, she did say how the daughter always watched Matlock. She really wanted to emulate her mother and be a hive. So maybe,
yeah, maybe.
And there we have it. Yeah. So again, I'm liking these endings. It's again which makes it different from the original cozy show.
It's a fun show to watch. Actually, I do enjoy it.
Yeah,
and it'll be fun to see how it plays out. But I've saw the showrunner say that the main mystery about the documents will be solved in the first season.
Really?
Yeah.
Which again, I think unless Kathy Bates has said, do you know what, I'll do this, but at my age maybe
she could die tomorrow.
She could die tomorrow. Maybe it's a one season only
she's
for
an
me.
Executive producer and stuff like that as well, so she's obviously involved in the production.
Yeah, but she may have said, I don't want to do my time in life, I don't want to do
a short run,
a 10-year show.
Yeah, I think she retired at one point, didn't she?
Did she? Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, but we've got trivia about her at some point in the future, not this week.
I do find Olympia more sympathetic than Madeline, though neither of them are obviously perfect characters.
They're high-flying lawyers.
Yeah, I don't like lawyers generally, but of the people in the show.
Yeah, she's not done... I was going to say she's not done much wrong, but the one thing she did do wrong, as we said, is taking on a case that she should not have got involved in.
That was hubris.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hubris going around.
Oh, very much so.
So I just wonder if the big revelation of the season is going to be Madeline figuring out that these folk are just like her. They're not villains or enemies, and that she shouldn't be pursuing this. That would be a damn scrub of a finish.
You need someone, and again, if you
the
are
real
looking...
justice was the friends that we made along the way.
Anything else you want to ask or mention?
It's going to get dull, I think, if every week you've got a case that Madeline solves at the last minute with a big piece of evidence.
That's
the format.
That is the format of original Matlock.
Yeah.
It's always the same.
But I thought you said folk worked with him and other people did stuff. It can't always be her that comes up with the...
No, other people will provide information just like Sarah does or Billy does, but it's always
Matlock that does
it's always, well, it's in court. It always ends up on the stand with him revealing something.
Okay. Well, in this case, Olympia got to do the reveal, I suppose,
Yeah.
to be fair. Okay, so before we go to trivia, I'll do the main case review again that we did last week.
Sure.
People seem to like that feature, I think.
Yeah. Oh, they love it.
Yeah,
The amount of letters we've been getting in the mailbag.
I got a postcard from abroad.
Yeah.
Anyway, the main case in this episode was the criminal trial of Michael Casey for the murder of Ariana Perez. The case collapsed after the witness Charlie Lopez confessed to the crime on the stand under examination from Olympia when she revealed he had edited the bodega's security footage to make it appear as though Michael had stolen the condoms that were found near the body.
Yep. Fair enough. Trivia?
Yeah.
Okay, 22nd of September 2024 was the original air date. Same director as last week, Kat Coiro.
Do you think the Olympia's daughter's named after her? The daughter's called Kat as well?
Maybe.
That's a
Possibly.
bit lazy.
Also the same writer, Jenny Snyder-Urman.
No, maybe it was Snyder.
Yeah. The cast. We'll go for a couple of the biggies as well as the guest stars. Jason Ritter plays Julian. He was born on the 17th of February 1980 in Los Angeles. He's been in an awful lot of things, including Candy, Raising Dion, A Million Little Things, Skylanders Academy, Another Period. Kevin probably Saves the World, Goliath, Gravity Falls, Parenthood, The Event, The Class, Joan of Arcadia, and Freddy versus Jason.
I don't think I've seen any of those things.
Have you not? Okay. He is well known to be the son of actors John Ritter and Nancy Morgan. And he appeared apparently in the opening credits as a baby in Three's Company, which was his father's show.
Okay.
He's the grandson of country star and actor Tex Ritter. And he's married to fellow actor Melanie Linsky. The other regulars, their CVs aren't quite as substantial.
Okay.
Leah Lewis plays Sarah Franklin. She was born in 1996 on the 9th of December in Shanghai, and she was adopted from an orphanage there. Now, I'm not sure if she was adopted by Americans and brought to America, or if she's adopted by Chinese people and then they all moved as a family. Who knows? You might have seen her in Nancy Drew, Elemental, Charmed, Guidance, Sing It, or The Half of It. Young Alfie, precocious Alfie, is played by Aaron D. Davis. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia, home of the original Matlock, and this is his first screen performance. I think he's got a few other things in the pipeline, but not as yet came to fruition. Jimmy, creepy Jimmy, and he was quite creepy.
He was.
He is Victor Cruz, who was born in 1980 in New York on the 5th of August. He appeared in the remake of The Taking of Pelham 123, Alma's Way, The Good Cop, Blue Bloods, NYC 22, and Law and Order, amongst many other things.
He's not the Victor Cruz that played for the New York Giants.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
I probably would have picked up on that.
Yeah.
Alejandro Acara, he was Charlie.
Okay.
Born in El Paso, Texas. Again, not a massive CV, but you might have seen him in Landman, The Good Doctor, or The Mosquito Coast. And finally, Autry, who was played by Hal Williams, and born on the 14th of December 1938 in Columbus, Ohio. You will definitely have seen him in Private Benjamin, no?
No.
It's a great movie and TV show. He was in both.
Was that the one with Goldie Hawn?
Yes.
Oh, I think I probably have seen that.
Oh, there you go. Also, 227, Guess Who, which was a remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with it's a race role reversal.
Not the movie version of the board game.
No. The Waltons, Sanford and Son, On the Rocks, and Cannon is a prolific character actor. He's been in lots of stuff.
Oh, yeah, from going way back, yeah.
Some trivia?
Sure.
Okay, so in the pilot, Maddie claimed that Matlock ran from 1984, but it was in fact 1986, so they were 2 years out with that.
So she's completely messed it up.
Utterly.
But on purpose, they must have looked this up before they wrote the script.
You'd like to think so, yeah. It moved from NBC to ABC in 1992, as discussed. And from the driver's licence that was projected in the courtroom, we can tell that her date of birth is the 6th of the 7th, 1949. I think that makes her about a year younger than in real life. She lives at the Reader Street Apartments in Elmhurst. And this is weird. Maybe it was a renewal situation, but her driver's licence was only issued on the 9th of the 10th, 23.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just... In fact, so it can't be 3 or 4 years out of date then?
No. Well, maybe. Bits of it.
I'm getting you here, you're at it.
Well, it's not my information.
At it.
I'm relaying
Leave the trivia to me, unless it's 100% accurate. Okay. She's blue eyes and is an organ donor.
Not yet, hopefully.
Well, you never know. Depends what organs.
Anything else?
No.
Next week, Madeline has to put her court skills to the test as she faces a tribunal on behalf of a woman who claims to have been wrongfully terminated in A Guy Named Greg.
So until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.